Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Weekend Warriors Workshop. I'm Chris, and I'm the adventure guide in this series of videos that takes us through all kinds of weekender projects that we can do quickly, easily, and more importantly, cheaply. Now, this starts our mini-series on bicycle maintenance. I was going to try to do it all in one episode, but I figured out there's just so much information on working on bicycles that it's going to take several episodes. So in this one, our very first one, we're going to build our very own bicycle maintenance workstand. Now, this design is a bench mount or workmate mount design. It's going to clamp the bicycle securely, get it up off the floor, allow us to do maintenance standing up instead of down on our knees, hurting our backs and our knees. It's a real cool design, and I've already built it before, so I know it works. Now, all the plans, material lists, etc., as usual, can be found at www.weekendwarrior.20x.cc, and that should be underneath me in red or yellow letters, whatever color I choose in edit. The next idea is that YouTube is giving us 15 minutes to do these episodes now. So fewer segments, longer segments. It should make it a lot easier to get through each of these projects. So now I'm going to go ahead and reset the garage. I'm going to show you various workstands that I've used, and then I'm going to show you the one we're actually building today. So you stand by, I'll get the garage set up, and we'll get rocking on this. Well, I'm back, and here's the bike stands I have hanging around in my garage. I have a travel stand left over from my bike shop days when I used to support triathlons and stuff like that. Now I use it to support family rides when we're doing 100 miles on a Saturday. Always good to have a mechanic in the family. I have my professional stand. Once again, left over from my bike shop days. It's stationary. It stays in the garage. It has its own toolkit with it. And once again, it sure does make it easy to work on bicycles when I don't have to worry about having them upside down, trying to manipulate the gears and the brake levers while they're sitting upside down on the ground. It's a lot more fun when you got a stand and you don't have to crawl around to work on a bicycle. And last but not least, we have the home-built stand. Now you notice its jaws are about the same height as the Pro stand. It's mounted to my workmate, that same workmate that we had in episode 1 that I've used for the last 30 years. It's sturdy, it holds up nicely. I can mount a bike in here and do complete maintenance to it, and it ran me about $15 to make, as opposed to $300 and $150. So that's about it. Which would you rather do? Have to bend over to work on a bike, or work on a bike at chest level? That's what you have to decide, and if you think chest level is better, come on back, because we're going to build this bad boy, and it's going to be quick, it's going to be easy, it's going to be cheap. So stay with me. Well, we're back, and we're set up in the workshop now, and in front of me I have the basic pieces we're going to need to build our work stand for our bicycle maintenance project. As you see, it's pretty simple. I've got about 3 feet of Schedule 40, 1.5 inch PVC pipe. I have 4 T connectors, 1 45-degree elbow, and 2 90-degree elbows. And really, that's all it's going to take for the basic structure. Now, of course, I got a couple of hinges and a clasp to set up a clamp, and that's what we're going to do with one of these T connectors. We're going to make a clamp out of it. So give me just a minute. I'll clear off my table saw, and we're going to start our grooves to turn this into a clamp. So stand by. Now I got a clear table saw. I can make my cut. Now what I'm going to do here is I've got my blade set up so it just barely doesn't make it all the way through each side of the PVC T. And the reason for that is because I've got a rounded edge and not a nice flat edge, as I run it across the fence, if I was to allow the PVC to separate, especially on the final cut, I would have this piece of PVC flopping around between the fence and the blade. That gets real dangerous because it can catch the blade, come flying back, and hit me upside the head. I'm not too into that, so I'm not going to cut all the way through. I'm going to make a good starting cut and something I can finish off easily with either a handsaw or a real sharp knife. I've got my fence set 1 1/8 inches from the center of my blade. I know I said this is 1 1/2 inch PVC pipe we're using, but this fitting happens to be about 2 1/4 inches across. So split the difference on that, that's 1 1/8, and that's where I want to make this cut. So now I've got stuffed into the bottom of the T, I've got a piece of PVC pipe just to act as a handle and to keep my hand from coming too close to that blade as I go across, because I've got to feed it all the way across. At the same time, I've got a feeder stick for the other side to hold it down. It's not going to get away from me, everything's going to go smoothly. So, keep the feeder stick where I need it, put my square out of the way, swap my measuring glasses for my cotton glasses, and here we go. That's better. Okay, again, we cut through safely. Now I should be able to separate this with just a handsaw, which I hopefully have right behind me here. And there we go. I've got a little bit of flashing on the edge, which I'll take off with a simple razor knife. And then I'll be able to measure and install my hinges and my clasp. So, stand by. Okay, I've cleaned up the joint and I've rejoined the pieces using some duct tape. You know, our good old friend duct tape. Now, what I've done here is I've taken our little hinges and a couple little pieces of adhesive tape, and I've taped down the edges of the hinge right where I want them to be. Now this one has moved around a little bit, so I'm going to retape it and get some tension on it. So a little bit of adhesive tape, hold everything in place. You can see the hinges right along the line. They're lined up pretty straight. Now what I want to do is take my marker and mark where I'm going to drill my holes, because I'm going to rivet these things in place using pop rivets. Now, since I just happen to have this thing sitting right where I want it, and it's taped down pretty firmly, I'm going to use my hinges as a drill guide. If I happen to lose the hinge, I still have the marks I just made. So I'm using a 5/32 inch drill, because that's the diameter of the rivets we're going to use. And I'm not going to rush. I'm going to pre-mark each one of the holes. Try to avoid putting your fingers inside the hole that you're drilling into. You'll be tempted to stick your fingers inside the pipe to steady it. Don't do that. It's a good way to end up with a hole in your finger. Okay, there's those holes. Now, not only do my hinges have to go on, but so does my clasp. Now, my clasp is going to go across and catch that bad little boy on the other side. So I want to make sure I get everything set right where I want it to be. This time I'm not marking, I'm just going to do a starter hole. Now I want to get the catch part on the other side. Making sure it's going to be nice and tight when I do. Now the great thing about these T-connectors is they have got a center line on them. So you can line up your holes on that center line. and you'll be fine. Also, our catch has got an elongated hole in front, but you can see it better from the upper camera, elongated hole in front, and then a set screw in the back. So you can get some slight adjustment on this before you sink that screw. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sink the rivet in here first, and then if I need to snug it up a little bit more, I'll tap it backwards, and then I'll sink the last rivet in there. So now it's time to untape and put some rivets and some hardware on here. Pop rivets are a neat little invention. You use this here pop riveting gun, and basically you're smashing two pieces of aluminum together. Now, the one that has the post sticking out of it, that's going to end up being flush just about. So I'm going to want this on the inside, closest to the frame, because the other side is going to have a nub on the end, and even though I'm going to put foam inside the clamp, I don't want that nub wearing through the foam and eventually scratching a bike frame. So, in go the rivets. On goes the hinge. Now notice that the big part of the hinge, or the hinge part itself, goes on the outside. It's real important. You don't want to get that backwards. You also want to make sure that you get everything nice and flush before you start tightening. And you don't want both sides of the hinge getting up inside the joint either. One time when I was doing this, I had the hinge flop over on itself, and I ended up riveting both sides of the hinges together. Didn't work out real good, in case you had some confusion on that. Alright, my hinges are now all in place. I've got my hasp in place, and now I've got my clasp in place. So I just want to check my clasp for fit, and when I tighten it all the way down, I'm joining up perfectly all the way across. Now I'm going to sink the last binding screw in there, or pardon me, I'm just going to sink in a hole, then drop a rivet in. Now, on these parts I made sure that the rivets were nice and flush with the inside of the clamp, because I didn't want a nub wearing through my foam. Up in here, I don't care if there's a nub sticking through, because that's never going to touch a bicycle. That's never going to get near a bicycle. So, it's not a problem for me to put the rivets in from the outside on the clasp. So I'll line that up nice and clean. Matter of fact, make sure I'm perfectly lined up, because it would suck to try to go and clamp that down and have it not go properly. Time to pull out our support piece. We're not going to be getting near a saw ever again with this. In goes the rivet. And there we go. The clamp is set. I'm done with the clamp. Now what I need to do is I need to cut out of my about 3 feet of PVC. I need to cut a 9.5 inch piece, a 7.5 inch piece, a 4.5 inch piece, only I'm probably going to cut that down a little bit to maybe a 3 and a 2. Because the one piece I forgot to mention earlier is a universal clamp. I'm going to want my stand to be able to give me different angles on the bicycle, and you'll see how that works out in a little while. But you do that using a universal joint, because with this I can set the angle, tighten it up, and the clamp's going to remain at the angle I set it. So we'll get back to that when we start assembling. But in the original plan, this wasn't in it. I've seen a couple modified plans that did have it. I like that, so we're going to do it too.